I mean, technically, I'm still promote chair. I just can't quit you, Mark. I'm still promote chair. I'm still a PO. I'm still.
So I was telling Charlie, it's like
This is we are streaming, but I can come chat. We just started the stream.
Am I allowed to see that?
probably not.
Okay. Just wanted to check.
Yeah.
I looked over my glasses, so it was all blurry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't believe they're asking that.
No worries. Spicy or like tough?
You sold your real estate office in my no longer has cheddar.
No.
This is going to be a little harder to do the timing.
I'll just show how.
But just make sure you access it. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming this evening. I do want to remind you to silence your phones. And there's no food or drink, including water bottles in the chapel. So if you need some water, step out. So that you know the schedule, we are going to start after introductions with our Secretary of State candidates. followed by our treasurer candidate, Jeff Bridges, and then we'll have a short break so that you can get snacks and water and use the restroom. And then we'll move on to the Attorney General candidates who've RSVP'd. So my name is John Sefkin. I'm the co-captain of House District 3 for the Denver Democrats. On behalf of the organizing committee, I'd like to welcome you to the 4th forum for Here's the Ticket. My co-chair for this event, Marge Price, captain of House District 9A Democrats, will explain Here's the Ticket in just a minute. But first, I'd like to offer some sincere thanks and gratitude to Mr. Doug Linkart, our moderator for tonight's event. Members of the Denver County Democrats who helped plan, advertise, and pay for this event. Emily Parker in the back there is our former first vice chair. Matthew Logan, our current first vice chair. Joe Perry, secretary. Beth Turner, treasurer. I'd also like to thank Melissa Garland. Melissa is here. Melissa, will you wave? Right there. And Barb Niederhoff, the secretary, for helping to publicize the event. This event would not have taken place without tremendous efforts of the planning team, which, in addition to Marge and I, include, and if you'd stand and wave as I call your name, Lydia Guzman, co-captain of House District 9B, Phyllis Baker, who was staffing the front door, who surveyed nearly every church in Southeast Denver and parts of Arapahoe County to secure a venue. Liz Gardner and Roy Fawcett for assisting with every phase of the event. Sheila Cowell, who originated this event back in 2018. Mark will tell you more about that. And once again, Emily Parker, who helped with all 4 forums in the series. We'd also like to thank the staff of Wilshire Presbyterian Church, Martha Pardee and Steve Curley. And lastly, we'd like to thank all the wonderful volunteers for this event. Larry and Cynthia Gallegos, you can wave. Natalie Mosier-Wren, Betsy Metzger, Dan Keller, Pat Kowalski, Meredith Van Inwingen, Kevin Asehan, Lee Sefkin, Kayla McCarnes, Cynthia Lane, Dave Mindock, Margot Holtham, John McKiernan, Dee Dukehart, Gene Fisher, Joel Schmidt, and Deborah Tate. Oh, and David Howlett. Sorry, David did have a good. Now I'd like to introduce Marge Price to explain Here's the Ticket. I also want to let you know that there is a petition here if you haven't signed for the graduated income tax. So at the break time or at the end, look for the person who's holding that right there. Look for her at the break time or at the end. And without further ado, here's Marge.
Thank you. I'll make this very brief. It's kind of a pitch. In 2018, Sheila Colwell was the spark plug that got Here's the Ticket forums going. And the emphasis was on down ballot candidates, which is what we're focusing on tonight. It made a huge difference. And for the first time in 40 years, we elected a Democrat to be Secretary of State. And it was the first time in decades that we were able to elect Democrats to all 3 of these statewide races, Secretary of State, Attorney General, and State Treasurer. Calling attention to these down ballot races makes a huge difference in the turnout, not just because there's more interest in the Secretary or in the Senate races and governor's races, but because people tend to then look down the ballot and vote on all of those additional races. The reason that it worked was in part because of the forums. In Denver, in 2018, Sheila tells me there were 7 around the city of these forums, and they were all well attended, but they also generated a lot of foot traffic. In other words, people who came to these forums, met the candidates, then went out and helped the candidates run for office all the way through the primary and hopefully into the general election as well. If you want to help with the Democratic Party so that you help with the process all the way through, that's wonderful. If you want to help a candidate, that's terrific too. But it's the people who go to help get out the vote in their block, in their precinct. If it's, if you don't feel like you can walk, then please, help write postcards or make phone calls or help put together a text bank or a phone bank. But this year, more than ever, it's important to get out the vote. Anybody who has their candidate tables out here, if the candidate or representative isn't there, leave them a note, please. Tell them you're willing to help. Or help at the check-in table. Two of our officers, one from District 3 and one from District 9 are there. If you want to volunteer for the Democratic Party in either one of the districts. I see some people here from other districts, and I thank you very much, all of you, for being here tonight. John? Oh, we need to have Liz come up, please. Sorry. Forgot the script.
I'm scared of my script. Hi everybody, I'm Liz Gardner, one of the newer volunteers. And one of my silent thank you is to ask you right now to turn your cell phones to stun or whatever. Got that? Okay, thank you. It's so annoying to be having these very talented people up here and then hear somebody's phone go off. All right, I've gotten over that. It is my great pleasure tonight to introduce to you someone who's been a fine standing Democrat and an elected official in our community for years. And it just makes me so happy to have somebody who has so much experience. He's been at almost all levels of the democratic process and the elected process. John has already told you his name, so I won't lead up to that great big thing, but just let me make sure that you know Doug Linkhart was a city councilman at large. When I met him back in the 1980s, he had just started the inter-neighborhood cooperation of getting neighborhood associations to talk to one another. What a concept. And they have been, which I think is fabulous. And then he went on to be a Denver city councilman at large. He was a state representative, he was a state senator, and now he is president of the National Civic League. And I don't know, Doug, if you would agree that tonight is one of the highlights of your career to be here to introduce us to these wonderful, talented candidates. Will you come be our moderator for the evening? Doug Linkhart, please help me welcome him.
Thank you, Liz. That was really nice. And I won't take credit for starting the Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, but I was active with the group, and many of you probably were as well. And thank you so much for all the work that you do as Democrats. And these races may be down ballot, but they're top of mind for a lot of us who disagree with what the president has been doing. This president has made the Secretary of State's offices and the Attorney General's offices more important than ever, right? I mean, it's certainly keeping them busy. And so it's really critical that we have good candidates in these offices. So really happy to be able to be with you and introduce these candidates to you and have them come up and be the stars of the show. So, and I don't need to tell you how important this is this year to mobilize people, and thank you for all the work that all of you are doing, writing postcards and writing checks and doing all that you do to get people out. This audience tonight is proof that there's a lot of interest in these elections, and we've seen that all over the country. So we're hopeful this is going to be a big year for Democrats. Come on now. So we have both Secretary of State candidates here tonight, and we have a bunch of questions, but we're going to ask each of them to do an opening statement for 3 minutes each. And we're going to bounce back and forth on who goes first. So, and we've got a timer in the back with a very loud ringer that you will hear, and ask you to obey the clock so that we can get through all of this tonight. So I'm going to ask Amanda Gonzalez to go first, and with your opening statement, and then we'll go to Jesse Danielson.
All right, perfect. Thank you all for being here tonight. It is so good to walk up and see these rooms so full, because it means that you care about your democracy, and I am so grateful for that. It has been a heavy month in the world of elections, right? We no longer have a Voting Rights Act, which is horrific, right? I am going to be the first Latina Secretary of State, and I know what is at stake for people of color without a Voting Rights Act nationally. And we cannot take what we have in Colorado for granted. And a question that I want you to keep in mind tonight is, in a moment where pieces of our democracy that we thought we could take for granted are under threat, can we afford to have anyone oversee the 2028 presidential election in Colorado who has never run an election before? So my name is Amanda Gonzalez, and I am currently the clerk and recorder in Jefferson County, where I run elections for nearly 500,000 voters. That is more voters than the entire state of Wyoming. No shade to Wyoming, they're lovely. And under my leadership, I am thrilled to say that we have had the highest voter turnout that Jefferson County has ever seen in history. And that is important because democracies only work when everybody participates, right? That is what it is about. It is the way that we have our voices heard in the policies that we care about. Whether you care about access to abortion, whether you care about being able to afford your health care, whether you care about your neighbors not living in fear of ICE, we have to protect the right to vote. And that is why I am running for this office. But my experience goes beyond the clerk and recorder's office. I used to be the executive director of a nonpartisan voting rights nonprofit called Colorado Common Cause, where I helped write the law that created automatic voter registration. I helped write the law that doubled the number of drop boxes. I know how to protect and defend our democracy because I've been doing it for my entire career. I am also ready for a fight, right? Folks like me do not necessarily always get elected to office, but I've done it before and I'm going to do it again. I'm from a really normal family. My dad builds houses for a living. My mom works at Costco. I was the first in my family to go to college and then law school. And like I said, with your help, I am going to be the first Latina to ever serve as Colorado's Secretary of State. Right? I know that we can do this. I know that we can protect our democracy, but it is going to take absolutely all of you. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Jesse Danielson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jessie Danielson. I'm a state senator, and I represent Jefferson County. I live in Wheat Ridge with my husband and my little 4-year-old and my 8-year-old daughter. I cut my teeth in politics a long time ago. So I started out as a grassroots organizer for NARAL Pro-Choice Colorado, which is now known as Cobalt, because that was just an issue that resonated with me at a really young age. It was about equality, it was about women's rights, healthcare, all tied up into one. And in the 90s, it was not the same climate as it is now. But that organization gave me a path forward, something that I could actually go out into the world and do to organize around a change policy. From there, I went to America Votes. And that was the first time that the state of Colorado had a broad-based coalition that was united around election law, but also getting progressive candidates elected to office. And that was when I built a coalition and passed through the legislature the bill that created vote centers, universal vote by mail, and same-day registration. Now known, of course, as the gold standard in election law all across the country. So I don't just know Colorado law, I built it, I implemented it, and I have been defending it for 12 years now. In the legislature, I continue to work on election reform and ballot access, strengthening our democracy, uplifting and making even better that stellar system that we built back in 2013. I was the one that actually wrote, crafted, and passed the automatic voter registration law, which broke down significant barriers for folks in Colorado who wish to participate. Also, ballot access for voters with disabilities, and the annual updates that the county clerks across the state engage in each year to make sure that, again, we're revisiting the system that I helped build back in 2013, improving it every single year. For those reasons, actually, the clerks around the state who are engaging in this primary are actually endorsing me. They know that they trust the elections in my hands when it comes to administering them at the local level. A few other things that I've prioritized in my time in the legislature I want to talk about, because right now more than ever, we really want Democrats with a dependable record. So we know that they're going to act on the values that we share by what they've done in the past. And again, I'm the only one in this race that has any kind of a record working on progressive issues, and to get them done, standing up to power. So whether it was establishing the Office of Missing and Murdered Indigenous Relatives, or regulating assisted living facilities against neglect and abuse, any of these policies, well, the Worker Protection Act, all of the labor law that I've written, I had to stand up and fight against leaders in our own party to get things done. So you know I am well-versed and ready to stand up to Donald Trump to defend our Colorado democracy that he loves to attack. I'm Jessie Danielson, and I look forward to earning your support.
We're going to bounce back and forth on this first and second. Jessie, you'll go first on this one. As Secretary of State, you would supervise a large staff. How would you describe your supervisory style? And what supervisory experience do you have?
Excellent question. So, sorry, oh, there it is. There's feedback there. Sorry, folks. I have a lot of supervisory staff. Before I ran for office, like I said, I ran organizations like America Votes. And so I have a lot of experience at the nonprofit level, which again, as you can imagine, would be pretty small staff, but you have to be really goal and mission oriented. And so I have a lot of experience there, but also when I was running these larger campaigns, it would be staffs of hundreds of people. And it could be in the office staff or the canvassers out on turf. How many of you have ever volunteered or not? Or phone banked? Yeah. Well, so as a volunteer, you get instructions from someone, right? But when I was running these campaigns, they were massive statewide, where we were targeting hundreds of thousands of voters across multiple states. And so in order to carry out this really, really important work to get good progressive people elected to office, I had to manage budgets of millions of dollars and staff of hundreds to thousands of people. So I have a lot of experience in the very small not-for-profit sector, in the bigger not-for-profit sector, and then again in terms of large-scale staff from entry-level positions all the way up to management. And I just really believe, I'm a worker bee, so I didn't need to be micromanaged, and I really like to let people function that way too. The staff in the Secretary of State's department is really quite incredible. And I've gotten to know them over the years, obviously because of the work that I described that I have had to carry off. So when I've said that I've passed these bills, it's not just voting on bills in the Senate. It's years of work investing in cross-departmental negotiations, working with the actual staff on the ground, governor's office, AG office, county clerks, legislators, municipality, and the tribes. So I already have quite a great deal of experience in other places, and I look forward to really lifting up that incredible staff at the Secretary of State.
I love that we're already like, let's talk about logistics and how organizations run. So I have been an executive director of nonprofits. I was the executive director of Colorado Common Cause, and I was also the executive director of GLADO, which is the state's largest and oldest advocacy organization for Latinos throughout the state. Right? So worked with broad coalitions and got really incredible work done. I have also been the CEO of a small business. So I had in that capacity about 20 employees and maybe 30 contractors, about a $4 million budget. We were exactly the wrong size, actually. Because if you've ever run a small business, anybody ever had their own business? Yeah, right? Like you get to pick which 80 hours a week you work. And so a business that size meant that I was a marketing department of one, that I was an HR department of one, that I was a compliance department of one. It was, being a small business owner was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And in my current capacity, I am the only person in this race who has been the executive of a large organization. So the Clerk and Recorder's Office in Jefferson County has about 115 full-time employees. By comparison, the Secretary of State's office is about 145. We also bring on up to 900 vibrant teams of election workers during a presidential election, and those aren't volunteers, they're actually paid workers. So if you haven't ever been an election judge, which is what we call poll workers here, this is my plea that you should do it, right? I run elections in Jefferson County, but I couldn't do it without our entire team, and I couldn't do it without every single one of those election workers, right? And so I'm involved in the training, the hiring, the systems that allow our team to do that. And you asked about sort of management style. And I would tell you that it is about teamwork. I have spent some time chatting with my employees just today about the upcoming election, what's at stake, and I know that we couldn't do it unless we all did it together.
And Gonzalez, you'll start this one. How do you propose securing Colorado's voting systems from federal changes that might weaken? Please address early voting, mail-in ballots, protecting voting records, and the proposed SAVE Act, so-called.
2 minutes.
You have 3 minutes. This is a 3-minute question.
Okay, great. So, as the clerk and recorder in Jefferson County, so your clerk and recorders are the ones that are running the election day to day. We are hiring election workers, we're training staff, we're making sure that those ballot drop boxes are placed in the correct places in the city and that you can get to them even if you don't have a car, right? Those kinds of things. We are also the folks that are physically processing the ballots, counting all of them and making sure that you are getting accurate election results. And so I have been on the front lines. I have been the one that is testing the equipment in our logic and accuracy test. I have been the one that is sitting in the tabulation room until 5 in the morning, making sure that all of your ballots are getting accurately counted. I am ready to protect the right to vote statewide because I've been doing the work of actually protecting our elections day in and day out. And so we are facing wild, is that a fair word? Threats to our democracy. So the first thing I want to make clear is that the Constitution grants states and Congress the ability to regulate elections, not the president. So all of these bonkers executive orders that you're seeing about creating lists and only those people are able to return their ballots by mail, that is insane. That is unconstitutional. It is not going to happen. As the only attorney who is in this race on any side of the ticket, I will tell you that we will use every tool in the legal toolbox to fight back against these executive orders because they are unconstitutional, and we have to have people at the helm of the states who are ready to fight back, right? So number one, don't let tyranny take over, don't voluntarily comply, fight back against every single one of these illegal executive orders. Right? Step 2 is that we have to make sure that we continue to have excellent laws in the state. I've mentioned that I've been the attorney behind the scenes, writing the policy and making sure that we got all of those details right. I will continue to work with the legislators that I've worked with. I will continue to work with our Attorney General, who you all nominate and elect. to make sure that we protect the right to vote Colorado. So we have a Voting Rights Act in Colorado because we knew that we needed to protect against the deterioration of democracy at the federal level, right? And the final thing is, these executive orders, the people on Trump's team know that they are not constitutional. But the goal is to confuse voters. Because if you heard a thing on the news, if you heard that the SAVE Act is going to pass even though it didn't and it won't, right? You're like, oh, do I need a different kind of ID? Am I still eligible to vote? Do I need to do something different? It is about confusing people and keeping them home. And so as Secretary of State, I promise you that I'm going to work with my colleagues who are clinical reporters to make sure that we are getting accurate information out to voters so that they are not disenfranchised.
Casey Danielson, would you like me to read the question again, just because it's come on?
No, I got
No,
it.
you got it. Okay.
Oh, thank you,
You got
Senator.
it.
Okay. So this is very straightforward. In Colorado, we've worked really, really hard in the legislature to protect Colorado voters at all costs, at every stage, and to increase participation and protect your access to the polls. And again, I know this from the inside out because, yeah, I'm not a lawyer, but I know all the good ones, and I'm the one who passed the bills to do what you do. If you like voting by mail, we did that. If you like registering and fixing your registration when you go to the polls, heck, one year I was on the ballot and I couldn't find my ballot. And I went into the polling station with my daughter to show her that how easy the system is, and they gave me my ballot, everything worked great, and then they looked at my legislative name tag and they said, wait a minute, you're on the ballot, what are you doing here? And I said, yeah, it's not ideal, I can't find my ballot, I admit that, and you know what, that's exactly why I wrote the bills the way that I wrote the bills. People make mistakes, there's coffee in the backseat of the car, or maybe, I don't know, you just misplaced it, maybe it got blown away in the mail, I don't know. Point is, we have a system that accommodates every eligible elector in the state, and we just continue to grow it while I was in the legislature for the last 12 years. There is no one better set to defend these systems than me. And in terms of pushing back on Donald Trump and his attacks on our democracy, again, he loves to hate the systems that I built. I am steadfast ready to defend them against that man and his attacks. What we need is someone who can on day one work hand in glove with the Attorney General's office. There again, no matter who comes out of that primary, I have had the privilege of working with each of them. David Seligman and I partnered on wage theft and a lot of labor law. Michael Doherty and I partnered on elder abuse and child sex abuse. I've worked with each and every one of them. And well, obviously the Secretary of State and I, we partnered on a number of our election bills because it impacted her department. And so no matter who comes out of this primary, I'm going to be able to, on day one, move forward together. Same with the gubernatorial race. Between those two men, we have a long history that spans decades. You need someone with those statewide and multi-level relationships because you have to start from day one. And again, I'm the only one that can offer that in this race. Constant, consistent communication to the electorate. In the face of the chaos and the lies from the Trump administration, you need someone with a steady hand in this office who will be trusted by the electorate no matter what letter is behind their registration, that you are telling them the truth about their rights. And that is what you get in me. That is why I've been endorsed by people all over the state of Colorado, whether it's municipal, congressional, legislative, former leaders, or the county clerks themselves. Not to mention the Southern Ute Indian tribe, who's never endorsed a candidate before in their history.
Question number 4. Jesse Danielson, other than running elections, what other parts of this job excite and intrigue you tonight?
2 minutes.
This office is incredibly important to all of us in terms of the elections administrative piece. I mean, that is a big piece of it on its own. What I'm really excited about is getting out into the counties. I know that in Arapahoe and Denver, you're much closer to the center of our governments, but I grew up on a farm north of Greeley outside of a little town called Alt, Colorado. Has anybody been to North Weld County? I see some smiles. I mention it because yes, I have a generations long attachment to this amazing state, and I care deeply about the people who live here. I care deeply about the wonderful place that we all call home. But I'll also mention it because when I've gone out into the counties from day one, I didn't start my campaign with a big fundraiser in Denver. I got in my car and I drove around the state to connect with voters like yourselves, as we're in a Democratic primary, but also with local leaders and the county clerks themselves. And when I go into a ruby red county and I sit down in a coffee shop or the clerk's office itself, and they ask me where I'm from, and I can say that I grew up on our family farm in northern Will County. We raise calves and lambs. There's an instant ease, and we could connect on a different level. This isn't someone that's going to, what do they say in Pueblo? We know, Jesse, that you're not going to go and leave us for the great state of Denver. Now in Denver, again, and I live in Jeffco, I've lived in Boulder, I've lived in Denver, and you know where I grew up. I've got a connection with folks all around the state. So I am deeply excited by getting back into the state and truly serving the counties. And that, again, is part of why so many of the clerks themselves are joining my primary race. The other pieces are better serving the business community and reconnecting in a service capacity with the nonprofit community, again, of which I was a part for a very long time. And those are the three things that I'm most excited about.
And it was awesome.
All right, there are two things I want to talk about. The first is the core of government should be there to support the public, right? My job right now is multifaceted, like the Secretary of State's office. Not only do I run elections for 600,000 residents, but I also oversee 5 motor vehicle offices, land recordings, marriage licenses, clerk to the board activities, and we accept passports, passport applications. And I am so proud that our DMVs have a 4.8-star review on Google. Right? Who positively reviews a DMV ever, let alone positively? But I share that with you because the reason I am in this office, the reason I am running for Secretary of State is I want to serve the people. I am not term limited. I did not need a new job, and this would actually be a pay cut. But I want to serve our community. I know that I can run elections damn well because I've done it. But I am also excited to make business services more accessible, more welcoming, and more inclusive. And finally, another very important aspect of the Secretary of State's office is campaign finance. If you want to know who is trying to influence your vote, it's the Secretary of State that holds that information, and it's that website that you go to. Citizens United is a nightmare. Right? And what it has left us with is that transparency is supposed to be the backstop. Billionaires can spend as much money as they want in elections, right? And it's really confusing to figure out who those billionaires are and what they're trying to convince you of. And the way you're supposed to be able to do that is understanding campaign finance filings. Any of y'all ever tried to do that? Right? The back button doesn't work. It feels like you need a college degree to understand, and that should not be the case. That is not transparency.
Amanda, this one's for you to start. What changes in campaign finance rules would you advocate for?
Let's do it. I'm so excited. I get another extra couple minutes. So yes, I will continue there. That first off, the lowest hanging fruit is it should be the case that if you can work Facebook, you should be able to work Tracer, which is the program that tells you how you can understand who's trying to influence your vote. It should not be the case that you need to be able to write code to understand how money is flowing and whether or not you agree with the folks that are sending those 975 mailers to your home, right? So transparency, 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 we absolutely have to make that system easier to use. The next piece is we have in the last couple of years passed some campaign finance reform that was a dramatic improvement. Did you all know that we did not used to have any limits whatsoever in school board races? Right? You could just buy a school board race if you wanted to. Now, I know that there's some complicated stuff around the limits to how much you can donate in Colorado. It just should not be the case that the uber wealthy and the billionaires in the state can put in office whoever the hell they want. Now again, we are locked in by some very bad law created by Citizens United and its progeny. And we have a nightmare Supreme Court that isn't going to change anytime soon. When I was at Common Cause, we actually had some cases teed up to bring through the courts to try and take down Citizens United piece by piece. And then the makeup of the court changed. And we know that if we bring cases to our current Supreme Court, we are going to get worse law. Which means that we have to make the decisions at the state level, and we are somewhat limited in how we do that. But we have a responsibility to do absolutely everything we can to limit the influence of big money and special interest. Right? That is why we get bad policy. And we have to make it crystal clear to the voting public how it works and who is trying to influence them. Thank you so much.
So during my time in the legislature, we have acted. We've acted to make elections more fair, more transparent, and to limit the kind of influence from dark money and the type of folks that you don't want coming to your neighborhoods. I think I would keep it a lot more simple, and what I would say is that you should know who's trying to fiddle with your elections. It should be clear to you when you receive a communication who's paid for it and whether or not you agree with them. They should be transparent, they should be easy to understand, and I think that that's kind of the goal for me, would be to continue to improve on the good work that we've done in the legislature, and continue to leave elections accessible for those who wish to participate. But I think it's when I know in my district and across the Front Range, we are hearing over and over and over again, it's really at the city level more than anything, where someone will just dump millions of dollars into an election. And they win, even though the local folks have been working for years on maybe how to spend a bond issue or affordable housing, for example. Many of you have been paying attention to these local elections in the spring and summer. So that's what I would say is voters need to always understand who's playing in their election, who's paying for it, and why. And if they choose to do what they want, what those folks want, so be it. But if you are being influenced by out-of-state or other influencers, I guess I would say, and it's unclear who's paying the ticket, we got to do something about that. So that will be my goal, to continue to move in the direction that I've moved in the state House and Senate, which is being very clear with the expenditures, who they come from, the amount, and how they're paid for. Is it really an environmental protection, or is it the oil and gas industry with a real fancy flyer? I've done it for years, I'll keep doing it in the Secretary of State.
Now we're going to move to 1-minute questions. I'll tell you, this organizing committee really knows what they're doing. Jesse Danielson, how do you plan to coordinate with county clerks across the state?
This is another really easy question because I prioritize them from long before I ever decided to run for this office. I started working with the county clerks back in 2006. That was the first year that the city and county of Denver went to vote centers and mail ballots. And if you recall election night that night, there were lines. From there, we worked with the city and county to improve their system, which led to the 2013 legislation that, again, I told you before, that I built a coalition that worked for a year to pass that bill. So in those 20 years, we have maintained collaboration. We have authored bills together. We've made really great progress inside the Capitol, and I've kept coming out to their counties. And when I kicked off my campaign, I have traveled to dozens of counties now. I know that that won't necessarily influence votes like a room like this, but it's the real deal, and they know whose trust they place, whose hands they place the elections in with their trust. It is mine, and that's how I know we will move forward together from day one.
Results.
How am I going to work with the county clerks? Exactly the way I do now. I talked to 3 of them earlier today because we are doing this work together. I am so lucky to be in a larger county where I do have a larger staff. I have a full-time IT person. I have a full-time communications person. And if you are in Saguache, that's not the case. You maybe have 3 employees total, including the person that's issuing marriage licenses and giving out the tags to your car. And so one of the things I'm really excited to do as Secretary of State is really beef up the support to counties, right? There's no reason that we can't be issuing daily talking points during an election. Hey, some of your constituents heard that a Dropbox was bombed in the Pacific Northwest. You're gonna need to be able to talk about that and make sure voters know that elections in Colorado continue to be safe. We can help the counties do that. We can also support them with all their IT needs and work really collaboratively. I'm already doing it, and I'm so excited to continue.
And for our other 1-minute question, Amanda Gonzalez, how do you plan to coordinate with other secretaries of state across the country?
Yeah, more things I've been doing this week. I just got back from North Carolina, where I was on a panel with the Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes from Arizona. Right? The problems that we are facing in Colorado are often the same problems that they're facing in Arizona, are often the same problems that they're facing in Massachusetts. Election deniers in the Trump administration are everywhere. And so we are absolutely already working together using economies of scale, sharing best practices. Hey, I put together these amazing voter guides. Hey, here's the threats that are coming to my office. Here's the way that we are working with our bomb squad. Right? These are all conversations that are really, really helpful no matter where we were. What I was talking about earlier this week with legislators and election officials from across the country is, what do these threats actually look like, and what kind of resources is it going to take to protect the vote in 26 and in 28? There's a lot of planning happening nationally, and I'm excited to continue that collaboration.
Thanks again, Senator Lingard. So, again, for the last 20 years, we work across state borders, whether it's legislative priorities. I wrote to pass the Equal Pay for Equal Work Act, okay? Well, then I shipped that out across state borders so that other states could learn from what we did. Similarly with the election bill that we wrote in 2013. So I've already been connecting across the country through my time at America Votes and my time in the state legislature, because it's the nature of my job. So I will continue to do what I've been doing for years, which is working with leaders all across the country, secretaries of state included. Once I win the primary, we can move on together with the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State, which is this great organization set up to coordinate and support Democratic Secretaries of State. But there's a national network too. And with my experience in election law that has been duplicated or tried to duplicate in other states across the country, I already have those relationships built into. So it'll be a very nice and smooth transition to a nationwide presence.
And we have 2 questions with no words and no time. And I know this is hard, but just a raise of hands and no words. I used to hate these when I was a kid. So I want to remember. Raise your hand if you think Tina Peters should be free. I thought that would be a sign. Raise your hand if you would support a congressional redistricting initiative for Colorado. All right. Now we're down to closing statements, and we'll go the opposite order from the start. Jesse Danielson, you've got 2 minutes for a closing statement.
All right, thanks again, everybody, for your time and thoughtful consideration tonight. It's really nice to be with you. I think I would just say that right now in this time, when we are facing these unprecedented and terrifying attacks from our own federal government, Donald Trump specifically, we really need someone in this office of Secretary of State who has the trust of people across counties, across departments, in legislative circles, in red counties, in blue counties, in purple counties, in rural counties, suburban and urban. There is one person in this race that has a proven progressive record, It is very important right now that you have someone in these statewide offices that can say that to you, because we need people who we know will act on your values by the way that they have acted in the past. And just by nature of my experience these many years, I'm the only one in this race that has any kind of a progressive record. And I'm really proud of that. It was very hard work. And that's exactly why I came to the State House to serve the people. We needed a dependable Democrat in my seat in Jeffco. I raised my hand and the community said, we need you. When I started looking at whether or not to run for this seat, it was the same thing. Over and over again, it was, we need you, Jesse. We need you because we need someone with the experience, the knowledge of the law, the guts and the wherewithal and the experience of standing up to power to protect our rights. And we need someone we can depend on to win this race. That is why even in just these counties, I've got the support of Meg Froelich and James Coleman, Emily Sirota, dozens of Democratic state legislators, former leaders like Wellington Webb and Roy Romer, the Southern Ute Indian Tribe as a council, which is unprecedented, and many, many, many more. All of the labor unions involved in this race are with me, and I hope you will be too. I'm Jessie Danielson, thanks again. Right. If y'all know me, you know I can get real nerdy. Kind of held in the line tonight, I'm proud of myself. I've taught election law at DU, but this is not academic. One of the highlights of my career is working on jail voting. So when I came into office in 2022, I learned that despite the fact that Jefferson County had conservatively 800 eligible voters who were in our jail. Any guesses out of 800 how many actually cast a ballot? 3. Right? That's a civil rights issue. And I went to our sheriff and I said, hey, let me put a vote center in your jail. And she said, under no circumstances. And so I worked with community organizations like CCJRC and Colorado Common Cause to pass the first law in the country that required in-person voting in every single county jail. Thousands more people got their ballots in jail than ever had before. And we talked to a voter, 29-year-old Latino guy, who didn't think he was eligible, but he came downstairs because we were there, and he had never voted before. And he said that it was one of the top 5 experiences of his life, and that it made him feel like he mattered. That is why this work matters. That is why I spent day in and day out fighting for your right to vote. When I ran for clerk and recorder, every election official that I'd ever worked with had gotten a death threat in 2020. I had to ask a friend, hey, if this gets really ugly in 2024, can I stay with you for more than a month? Right? That is only going to get worse if I'm Colorado's first Latina Secretary of State. But I'm doing it anyway because it is worth it. We cannot let the bullies win. We cannot let the Trump administration win. We have to fight for our right to vote. We absolutely can, and we will win. I'm so excited to do it with you. Amanda Gonzalez, Amanda for Colorado, all over the internet.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that we have good candidates here, and that whoever wins this time will be won. So, thank you so much. John?
Just go. Hello, everybody. Do what you
Well, we told we only have one candidate, right? Because there were more, but Jeff Bridges scared everybody else away. And
I worked very, very hard.
And did really well in the assembly, state assembly. So we're really glad to have him with us tonight. We said he could speak for 10 minutes, and he said he didn't want to speak that long. He wanted to take some Q&A as well. So he's got 10 minutes to do whatever he'd like. So thanks for being here.
You give a mouse a cookie, right? Thank you all so much. State Senator Jeff Bridges. I am running for state treasurer. I am your Democratic nominee for State Treasurer. Thank you. I believe this can be the most impactful office in the state over the next 4 to 8 years. And here's why. The Treasurer is essentially the Chief Investment Officer for the state of Colorado, in charge of billions of dollars in state funds. And right now, those dollars are spread across the country. They are in Wall Street, they're in Washington, they're in Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, helping folks in Florida, Texas, and Ohio own homes. That's not helping the people of Colorado. Instead of Wall Street, I'll invest in Colorado companies creating Colorado jobs. Instead of Washington, I will partner with cities and counties in the state that are building the infrastructure that we need for this economy to thrive. And instead of Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, I created the first in the country middle income housing authority at a statewide level, the first in the country middle income housing tax credit. I have been fighting on the financing side for housing in the legislature for a decade now. We need to be putting those dollars to work here in Colorado. We have a housing crisis. Nurses, teachers, and firefighters should be able to afford to live in the communities that they serve, and so should everyone else. People should be able to afford to live where they work. That is what I will do as treasurer. That is why I am running for treasurer now. Over to you. Thank you. That's the short stuff speech. So, questions? That's what I'm here for. Yes? No, I live like 13 minutes that way. Yeah. No, actually, so HD3 is I was elected to the state house 10 years ago here in House District 3. It didn't have any Denver in it at that time. It was just Sheridan, Inglewood, Cherry Hills, Greenwood Village. It's morphed a bit, but I am HD3 alone.
Investing in Colorado, I'm just kind of curious what plan to invest in big enough to have.
Great question. Here's so the question was, when you're investing in Colorado, how can you get a big enough return? First and most importantly, when we're looking at the treasury pool, returns that we make on those dollars go out as taper refunds. We can't even keep those. So we could put Warren Buffett in as state treasurer, and it wouldn't make a lick of difference as far as what we can fund for schools, for homes, for infrastructure here in the state. Not a lick of difference. But what we can do instead is, instead of trying to make as much money as we can with those investments, we can work on figuring out how we can make the biggest difference in the lives of Coloradans. And I think that starts with housing. CHAFA right now is putting together $1 billion fund that is going to be focused on projects that just don't pencil at current market rates, about 7 to 8% if you're going to be building housing right now in Colorado. If we can instead offer capital at about 3 to 4%, there are projects across Colorado that can be built with that kind of, with that rate. And because we have to price for risk, we don't need to price to make money back in. But we can't lose money. The first and most important thing is we don't lose any money. We can be a major investor in that $1 billion fund that CHAFA is putting together. And that is, CHAFA is the Colorado Housing Finance Authority. They do all the low and a fair bit of the middle income housing work here in the state. So we can partner with them, like this is first 10 days, not even first 100 days. We can partner with them, invest in that $1 billion fund, and start making a real difference right away. So there are a lot of different ways that we can use those dollars. That's just the first example, but there's infrastructure projects in the state. There's a build authority that I helped create in partnership with the current treasurer, Dave Young, investing in that partnership. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and yes, it can make a huge difference. Well, privilege to the chair.
Would you make sure that people understand why you don't need a profit? What happens to it under Tabor?
Right, so when we pass bills and when we bring money into the treasury, so we have these cash funds. As the cash funds earn interest, we attribute those dollars back into the cash fund, except that every dollar that we make in interest is the same as if we were collecting those dollars in taxes. And so we have this, I'm going to do the Tabor thing since you let me. So those of you who haven't seen my arm before, this is the Tabor rationing limit, inflation plus population. Sounds reasonable? Do the same thing next year as you did the year previously, right? Just, if you want to grow government, go and ask the people. Here's the challenge. The cost of healthcare goes up like this, way faster than inflation. The cost for construction materials, for roads and bridges, way faster than inflation. The cost for wage growth, a third of our budget is Medicaid, that's like this, that's healthcare. third of our budget's K-12, 9% of that is wages. Wage growth goes up way faster than inflation. So to do the same thing next year as we did the year before is about $1 billion more than the Tabor cap lets us grow. So we have $1 billion deficit every single year because of Tabor. And any money that we make in interest in the treasury pool counts against that Tabor cap. So when we make investments and we make money on those investments, that money just increases Tabor refunds across the state. It doesn't increase what we can invest in schools or healthcare or any of those things. So that's why I say, instead of trying to make money, instead of investing with Wall Street, put those dollars in Colorado companies, get less money back in, as long as we don't lose it, as long as when we sign that check to the school districts and our state employees cash their checks, as long as those don't bounce, as long as we have those funds, the money that we do have ought to be doing more work for the people in Colorado. And it's also why I'm working to raise the Tabor cap. You will see that on your ballots. I'm working with CEA on that. Happy to talk more if people want to. Yeah, next question.
As our treasurer, there's...
I will continue to fix your shower when I stop by your door.
Yeah, he actually helped me fix my shower. He's a good candidate in many other ways. As the treasurer, the funding of the available to the candidates is a pretty complex project, a complex set of rules. There's a group called One Main Street as one example. What could you tell us about a group like that? Elucidate the goodness or not so goodness. Could you give us an idea what you see happening with that group?
I think One Main Street is part of a transition we're seeing broadly in the state of Colorado as we go from a red state to a purple state to now. I don't think we're a deep blue state by any means. I think we're a light blue state. But this is what you see in other parts of the country as states transition into safer democratic states. You see that party infighting and who wins primaries becomes a much bigger focus for a lot of the money that is involved in politics. It's a shift away from investing in general elections and into investing in primaries. This is nothing new. We had folks fighting in primaries 10 years ago when I ran for the state house. I had an outside group that helped me. My opponent had an outside group that helped her. And then in the general election, my state house race in 10 years ago in 2016 was the most expensive state house race to date at that time. I raised $250,000 as a state house candidate, which was a record. Then, it is not a record anymore. My opponent raised a bit less than that. Outside groups spent about $3 million. So it's not like money in politics is new, or money even in state politics is new. I think what you're seeing is a move into those primaries. One Main Street, I feel compelled to point out that it does have labor unions as part of its membership. I know folks like to sort of say these are the bad guys. There are some groups involved in One Main Street that I'm not the biggest fan of, but there are some groups that are involved in One Main Street, trade unions, folks like that. So it's not a pure boogeyman funding, but certainly I think more and more you're going to see people fighting in primaries. No group got involved in my primary. It was just the candidates. It was just the state assembly process. It was hard fought. I personally made a full phone call, a set of phone calls to the entire list of folks that were going to state assembly and committed. My mother-in-law did a couple of other passes. She even went to people's houses that we couldn't get on the phone. 3 mail pieces, text messages every day. Text messages are super cheap. If any of you were going, you know that went to the state assembly, you know how many text messages we sent. Apologies. We have sent far fewer since. So we worked incredibly hard. State assembly is one of those places where shoe leather really pays off. You put that shoe leather in. No outside groups in this race, and now that I'm a candidate, I don't think any will. There's no primary, so there's no money that will come in for me in a primary. The general election, though, I do expect that there will probably be some outside spending in this, and we'll see how that goes.
20 seconds left.
I can do
20 seconds, and we're running fast.
20 seconds.
Okay. I'm into the concentration camps. And there are some camps that are put in Colorado that we don't know about. So the question is, do the immigration concentration camps siphon off Colorado
tax money?
In the sense that we are fighting them and spending money fighting court battles to close them, in the sense that the horrible things that are done are paid for by, the cleanup of that is paid for by Colorado taxpayers. There is a financial impact to the state. Not a significant one, but certainly anytime you have something horrifying like this happening, there's going to be consequences for everyone around, even the folks that aren't directly targeted. We have to get Congress back in November. That is one of the most important things that we can do this year. It's critical that we take it back and that we take funding away from what is happening right now. So I do hope that you will vote for me in November. I hope you'll vote for me in June on your primary ballot. If you don't, I still feel pretty good about my chances. But we need to make sure we take back Congress in November, and I think we have 3 potential pickups here in Colorado this year in Congress. So fight hard. Thank you so much for having me.
We still have 10 minutes.
Break time.
Break time. 10 minutes.
Yes.
10-minute break. Come back.
And David, remember David?
Hi, how are you? Nice to see you.
Did you
Do we have one video or 2?
2? We have 2.
So what's the scoop?
We have 2 videos to show. So I talked with Ian, who wants to show them at the end of the last one. That's fine. You tell us when. We haven't loaded.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
How's it going?
Saw somebody with
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, that's
I told him he's allowed to wear that. I'm like, I can't campaign here. You can campaign.
you can do it. Yeah. That's good to hear.
Tech is going well. Everything's so it'll be at the end of the panel. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Whenever done, use it up. Okay. I'm talking the videos we're gonna do.
Yeah. We had a queue.
Okay, Jeffrey, we're ready to start. Can you move back into the chat?
And take turns.
Yeah. That was fun.
All right, we're ready to roll again. We talked about these races earlier as down the ballot, and I mentioned that they're also really critical. And everybody here knows that the Attorney General office in Colorado and all across the country has been very, very important in countering the no vote back east. So we really appreciate in advance the work that we'll be doing over the next few years. So we have 2 of the 4 candidates with us tonight, and we're going to have quick videos of the other 2 that did not make it after we do the forum with these 2 gentlemen. So we have opening statements, 3 minutes each, and as we did with the last one, we're going to switch back and forth. So we'll start with Michael Doherty, and then David Sullivan, 3 minutes each for an opening.
Well, hello everyone, I'm Michael Doherty. I'm the District Attorney for Boulder County, and I'm running for Attorney General of Colorado because the moment demands that each one of us do everything we can right now to defend our democracy and to build a better future for Colorado. We are facing the greatest threat to our democracy in my entire lifetime. That's why I'm running for Attorney General. And I know from working there and being a leader in the AG's office, the important role that office plays when it comes to environmental protection, mental health, consumer protection, abortion access, public safety, but also standing and fighting for our democracy and the rule of law. And I want to make sure we don't miss a beat when Phil Weiser finishes his last day in the Attorney General's office. That's why I'm here. To be honest, I've had a long day. I'd rather be home playing and losing in FIFA soccer to my son. But I'm here because the people's lawyer should show up and answer questions. And it's great to be here with my friend David. And our friend Hedel Doshi is at a law school reunion once in a 10-year time. The other candidate is missing her 6th candidate forum in a row. The 6th. We should show up and answer questions about whether we have experience as an attorney before becoming Attorney General, and experience as a leader of large law offices. That's the experience I bring to this race. That's the experience I bring to the Attorney General's office. And I think it's so important that we have someone who's battle-tested with a proven track record who's going to stand up and fight for what's right and do it with integrity. That's the kind of work I've been doing my entire career. So I started as a prosecutor in New York City. I'm the proud grandson of 4 Irish immigrants who came over on the boat with nothing but the shirts on their backs. The freedoms and opportunities this country offered to them then. That's why I'm passionate about the immigrant protection program that I've had in my office since 2018 when I became district attorney. It's about standing and fighting for immigrants. It's why, as your next Attorney General, I'm going to take ICE to court and demand they take down their mask. And I'm going to stand and fight to get private prisons banned in the state of Colorado, because they're outrageous to me. That office is the front line against the lawless Trump administration. Congress, in my opinion, but you probably agree with me, is basically dysfunctional. There's certainly not a check on the Trump administration in the White House. So the Attorney General is the only line of defense we have. The Attorney General has to have the experience as a fighter and a leader of lawyers. The Manhattan DA's office, I had the privilege of supervising 1,300 people in my final position there. My wife, Antonia, and I moved to Colorado for a position at the Attorney General's office. And 7 months after I arrived here, I was put in charge of the entire criminal section for the AG's office and became Deputy Attorney General. And I've handled cases all around the state: election fraud, public corruption, homicides, human trafficking, and for the past 8 years, I've been the District Attorney in Boulder County. And I know what it means to lead through a crisis. And we're living through a crisis right now. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
David Seligman. No, come on,
Swear. Hi, everybody. I'm David Seligman. I'm a workers' rights, civil rights, and consumer protection lawyer, the executive director of the legal nonprofit Towards Justice, and I'm the father of 3 little girls. I've been saying I'm the father of 3 little girls, and my youngest daughter says, in addition to calling us your 3 little girls, I also want to be called your beautiful girls. And then my other daughter said, in addition to be calling the beautiful girls, we should be the smart girls. So I say we're the 3 little beautiful and smart girls. I grew up here in East Denver, and I had the great fortune to take out student loans to go to Harvard Law School. I clerked for federal judges. But I saw from day one how the law was so often tilted in favor of those with wealth and power. That's why I'm running for Attorney General, because we live in a system where those with wealth and power play by a different set of rules. The system that has given rise to the moment of crisis that we're in right now. I've dedicated every single day of my career to standing up in court for working families, for rideshare drivers, for meat packers up in Greeley with disfigured hands, because JBS, one of the most powerful and wealthiest meatpacking corporations in the history of the world, turns up their line speeds to brutal, inhumane levels. I'm fighting for Amazon delivery drivers across Colorado who have to urinate in bottles to meet Jeff Bezos' impossible quotas while he stands behind the president at the inauguration with $250 billion in his pocket. We've taken the Trump administration to court and won. I'm the only candidate in this race who could say that they have sued the Trump administration and won on behalf of sheep herders making $2 to $3 an hour, doing some of the most brutal round-the-clock work you could possibly imagine. I'm standing up for tens of thousands of renters buried in junk fees, illegal, garbage, bogus junk fees by the biggest corporate landlord in the country, Graystar. And I'm standing up in court for hundreds of thousands of Coloradans that are drowning in medical debt to billion-dollar hospital systems in Colorado. When I talk about how there's a 2-tier justice system in this country, I often think about my client, Kathy, who had to sell her late husband's wedding band to pay off medical debt to UC Health, medical debt she didn't even owe. I recently won in the United States Supreme Court a case I've been fighting for more than a decade on behalf of thousands of immigrants locked up in the immigration detention facility here in Aurora, Colorado, taking on the GEO Group, the private prison company that operates it. We've also sued the Polis administration and won. We recently stopped the governor from turning over Coloradans' personal information to ICE. This moment demands new voices, new leaders in the Democratic Party, people who are ready to hold the Trump administration accountable, ready to hold accountable the corruption and cruelty that surrounds them, and who are ready to set out a positive vision for our future, where we're done getting ripped off by the corporations and billionaires that are pillaging this democracy for their own profit. Thank you.
We're going to switch orders, and maybe you'll start with this one, and this is 2 minutes. As Attorney General, you would supervise a large staff. How would you describe your supervisory style? What supervisory experience do you have? 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good now? Okay. Got it, okay. Thank you. And that reminds me, I was going to say, I want a big thank you to Shelby and Emily, who time every single here's the ticket, and we've been to several of them, they deserve a raise. They deserve a raise. Talk about how we need more worker power in this state. Shelby and Emily do too. Thank you for the question. One of the most important responsibilities of the next Attorney General will be to lead this office with more than 700 staff, taking on some of the biggest fights for the future of our country, holding big corporations accountable, holding the Trump administration accountable, taking on cases unlike anything we've ever done before in this country, right? For example, prosecuting ICE agents or federal officials when they trample our rights, and we have to be ready to do those things. As the executive director of Towards Justice, an organization that I have led for 6 years, we have turned that organization into a national powerhouse in the fight for economic justice and civil rights. I've done it by recruiting and retaining some of the best lawyers in the country. Not peering over their shoulder every step of the way, but empowering them with a vision for our office and for the fights that we want to take on, to go after those with wealth and power who are trampling our rights, and allow them to do that work with the support, with boldness, and with courage. That's exactly how I lead in the Attorney General's office. I think now more than ever, we need somebody in this office who knows how to lead a team to take on fights against parties with substantially more resources than we do. So for example, when we took on Amazon in first in the nation case, challenging them for the ways in which they were refusing to comply with workplace health and safety standards during the pandemic, when people were dying on the job, we learned that Amazon paid $1 million for a single brief. $1 million for a single brief. Yet our small and mighty organization was able to take them to court and win important victories on behalf of working people across the country. That's what this moment demands. I think a leader who is going to come into that office knows how to empower people, knows how to recruit and retain the very best, and knows how to put them in a position where they can go on offense every single day for working families. I'll do that not by peering over their shoulders, but by empowering them with a vision to take on a legal system that is rigged in favor of those with wealth and power. Thank you.
Given my experience, I'm ready to hit the ground running on day one. And there are 724 public servants at the Attorney General's office. They choose to work in that office rather than be in private practice making more money because they believe in the leadership and mission of the Attorney General's office. And that's why being a leader and having a proven track record as a leader is absolutely critical, especially when you look at what the AG's office is responsible for right now. And I'm ready to lead them. At an early point in my career, I was made the deputy chief of the sex crimes unit for the Manhattan DA's office, supervising 50 prosecutors working some of the most difficult, challenging, and meaningful cases we have in the justice system. And from there, I was put in charge of the day-to-day management and leadership of the entire office of 1,300 people. From that experience, I learned what it means to lead in the fight for justice and to do it with integrity. The next Attorney General cannot be hyper-partisan. The next Attorney General has to pick the right battles against Trump and then win them in court, and protect our environment, and protect consumers, civil rights, and the list goes on. When I moved to Colorado, I had the honor of being put in charge of that entire criminal section for the AG's office. I'm the one candidate who's worked in the office that I now seek to lead. That experience has shaped me as a leader for the AG's office and for the future. And as the elected district attorney of Boulder County, what I've done, my leadership style has been to hire great people and then let them loose and empower them to do the right thing. As a result, there's a long list of things we've done. And I say we, because every list of accomplishments that we have in our office is a team effort, along with our community partners. We started the first mental health diversion program in the state of Colorado, because we are woefully underperforming those with mental illnesses. And I'm passionate about us doing better as a state. We launched the first Fresh Start Warrant Forgiveness program in the state of Colorado. It's now replicated all throughout Colorado. We were the first district attorney's office in the state to bring in an independent organization to identify racial inequities that exist, and then to put all that data on our website and make it available so that we're transparent. That's what it means to lead with integrity. Thank you.
Just to keep you on your toes, this one's 1 minute. And Mike Cotori, we'll start. What reforms would you like to see in our criminal justice system?
So there's a long list, and I have a lot of work that I've done on criminal justice reform reform, my office, I am regarded as a leader in criminal justice reform amongst the district attorneys for Colorado. And I touched on some of the things. We also have to increase mental health resources. So we launched a competency court in my jurisdiction. We also started an alternative sentencing facility to help individuals with behavioral health needs instead of having them cycle in and out of the justice system over and over and over again. We need to do better when it comes to prison and rehabilitation. Private prisons should be banned, and on my watch, we're going to make that happen. Also, juvenile facilities, they're supposed to be caring for our kids and helping our kids get back on the right track, not abusing their kids, which is what's been happening under the Polis administration. I also want to make sure that we get rid of the two-tier justice system that's allowed to exist in other parts of the state and the country. And when I say two-tier justice system, let me be really clear. If Governor Polis releases Tina Peters a day early, it would be an absolute miscarriage of justice. We have to make sure the justice system is applied equally for all, and I'm committed to that. Thank you.
I want to pick off right where my friend Michael left off. It is absurd to me that this governor is thinking of granting clemency out of mercy for Tina Peters because her sentence was too harsh. The same governor who vetoed a bill last year that would have prohibited municipal courts from sentencing people for longer than state courts in this state, right? Now all of a sudden he sees a harsh sentence. It is so illustrative of how our politics has gotten broken around this issue. You know, in 2021, 2022, our eyes were open to the ways in which our criminal legal system was so often rigged and weaponized against marginalized communities, against communities of color. We cannot lose track of that spirit, and I've seen too much of it. We need to ban private prisons, because private prisons are often the ones showing up and lobbying for longer criminal sentences, right? Because that's how they make their money. We need to rid our criminal legal system of every form of profit, right? Because so often that's what this is all about. We need to make sure that we address the core root issues, the causes of criminality in the state. Very often, it's the dearth of mental behavioral health and community-based treatment.
You can finish if you like on this one because you've got 3 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So now this is a long question. So for David Sullivan, you got 3 minutes. Colorado's Attorney General is responsible for protecting consumers from fraud, scams, and unfair business practices. What specific emerging threats do you believe Colorado residents are most vulnerable to right now? And what concrete actions would you take to address them? 3 minutes.
Wow, there's a lot to talk about here, and these issues are core to my work, or the work that I've dedicated my entire career to taking on. Let's start first with the way that AI is being weaponized in order to spy on us, in order to rig the economy against us. As just one example, I'm here in the legislature over the last couple of days fighting for a bill that will prohibit what we call surveillance wages and prices. Has anyone heard about this problem, surveillance wages and prices? Yeah, good. We now live in a world where you could be charged more for a plane ticket because you've been searching for an obituary online, and the company thinks that you're more desperate to travel. Right? You could, a worker, right, a nurse, for example, applying for a job could get paid a lower salary because she's been searching for divorce attorneys, and the company thinks that she may be more desperate for work. That's the world we're living in right now, where AI systems are scraping the internet, like surveilling everything we do in our lives in order to rig the economy against us. It is algorithmic theft. It's work that I have taken the lead in fighting my entire career, bringing first in the nation cases, for example, on behalf of Uber drivers, who are the canaries in the coal mine of this problem, when my clients realized that they would get paid lower wages and they were taking money out of the app, and the company perceived them to be in need of cash. We're going to need to address the problems that AI presents, and we're going to need to do it with courage, with vision, with boldness, no matter how much money that these big tech firms pump into our politics. It's going to mean new regulations, and I'm going to be there at the Capitol fighting every step of the way for the regulations that we're going to need in order to rein in these kinds of abuses. But it's also going to mean enforcing the laws and the books, the ones that have been there for decades and decades and decades. There is no AI big tech exemption to our laws. I brought a first in the nation case just a couple of months ago against a company that was screening out job applicants based on information obtained about them online, screening out billions of job applicants for the biggest corporate employers in the country, scoring them through an AI system from 0 to 5 based on their likelihood of success on the job. That kind of conduct violates the laws that we've had on the books for decades and decades and decades. We just got to hold them account to it. I'm also very deeply concerned about the ways in which our healthcare system continues to serve profits over people. We've got over 1 million Coloradans, as I said before, 1 million Coloradans drowning in medical debt to hospital systems making billions and billions a year. Much of that debt is debt people don't even know. Oh, we're gonna have to use our consumer protection laws to hold healthcare providers accountable when they refuse to follow our financial assistance rules, or they refuse to follow our transparency billing rules. And we're gonna have to go after health insurers who are increasingly using AI in order to systematically deny our claims. The truth is that our healthcare system is deeply rigged in favor of those who are profiting, making billions and billions and billions of dollars off of us.
So on weekends alone since starting the campaign, I've traveled 17,000 miles. That's what it means to be the people's lawyer. And as I travel the entire state and I ask people, what are the 2 issues that you're most concerned about? Everywhere, the answers are the same: affordability and crime. And at a time where people are having trouble putting food on the table and paying rent and being able to afford gas money to get to work, the scams and frauds make things worse. And we're losing millions and millions of dollars every year to scammers and fraudsters. Throughout my career, I've worked on preventing scams and frauds from victimizing communities I've worked in, and also prosecuting scammers and fraudsters. So let me ask you this: when's the last time you got a scam phone call or email? Yesterday. This morning, Ken says. Yes.
I just got one ready tomorrow.
David Selman just got one now. When's the last time you heard about one of them being brought to justice? Never. Never. We have to reprioritize this, and the Attorney General's office is uniquely positioned. If you have a prosecutor who fights for justice, to lead that consumer protection division and make it more of a tiger, to get after scammers and fraudsters. We do a lot of crime prevention in my office, a lot of community outreach to talk to people about how to avoid being scammed. So for example, if you get a call on your cell phone and you don't know who it is from, do not answer. Recently, I got a call on my cell phone from a number I did not recognize, and I'm a candidate for Attorney General, so I think, ooh, this could be a contribution or a volunteer. Hello, Michael Dougherty. Turns out they say I owe $10,000 in Medicaid fraud. That's what the scam was. We can't let people fall victim to these scams. And as Attorney General, I'm going to get the email providers and phone companies to the table to put more protections in place. And also making sure we're doing things on housing and healthcare, where AI scams are being used all the time. But also corporations are getting away with scams all too often. And as Attorney General, I'm always going to put people first and not worry about profit. And for too long, it's been the opposite in this country and the opposite in Colorado, where profit comes first. So for example, Phil Weiser and I were strong partners and friends. We teamed up a couple of years ago to bring the first of its kind in Colorado's history lawsuit, a civil suit, against a housing provider that was scamming hundreds of tenants out of their security deposits and using hidden and deceptive fees. And we got a $1 million settlement for all the victims in that case. The Attorney General's office is uniquely positioned, and I know that having led the criminal section. The insurance fraud, Medicaid fraud, securities fraud work for the state of Colorado is all housed within the AG's office. And with the Trump administration rolling back all the protections that we need in Colorado, the AG's office is going to have to step up and do even more. And as a sign of my commitment to fighting against scams and fraudsters, I married the head of the Identity Theft and Cybercrime Unit in the DA's office. So she frequently reminds me of the need to be committed to this work. But in all seriousness, it's affecting people all throughout Colorado, and I'm going to hold scammers and fraudsters accountable. Thank you.
All right, Michael, you'll start on this one, and this is down to 1 minute now. Keep you on your toes. What's your plan to protect Colorado residents from ICE troops? What leadership perspective would you see needed given the times we live in? 1 minute.
So the question calls me to talk about what I'm going to do in the future, but I'm going to tell you what I've been doing for the last 8 years. We have an immigrant protection program in my office. We do Know Your Rights trainings all throughout Boulder County for the last 8 years. Since launching the campaign, I've been doing them all around the state of Colorado. Because of my work on immigrant protection, last year I was asked to help lead an effort to expand immigrant protections and take what we have in Boulder County statewide. So for example, for 8 years in Boulder County, law enforcement has never once asked any person their status in this country. And if they found out during a victim interview, for example, they never reported it to the federal government. That is now the law in the state of Colorado. I'm the one candidate who successfully prosecuted police officers. I'm the one candidate who's held people in power accountable by a criminal prosecution. I promise you, I will hold ICE fully accountable when they commit crimes in the state of Colorado. No one is above the law. That is my solemn commitment. That's why when I say ICE is coming to town, they better be aware if it's me in the AG's office, not on my watch. Thank you.
ICE is already perpetuating crimes in our communities. You know, my organization, Towards Justice, we get calls all the time from workers. 2 this week, workers who said that their boss told them they're not going to get paid. If they complain, they're going to get a call to ICE. That's what we're up against right now. You know, we need to take it on with clarity and with vision and with boldness and with legal tools that this country has never had to use before. That's why I've been saying for many, many months, since before Minnesota, since before my opponent said the same, since before any AG candidate in the country said it, that we're going to need to prosecute ICE agents when they trample our rights. We're also going to need to go after the private prison companies, like the Cheeto Group, where right now we've got hundreds of people locked up just a few miles from here, many of them sick. There's all kinds of violations of state health code that are likely happening in that facility. You know what I'm doing right now? A subpoena in my hand, banging down the door, let us in. Those cases are not going to be easy, but we are going to have to bring them. We may not win everyone, but we're going to have to fight everyone. We're going to have to take on all those in Colorado who think collaborating with ICE, like the governor, who think collaborating with ICE does anyone any good or keeps any of us safe. It makes all of us less safe.
David Seligman, 1 minute. What role would you like to play in protecting Coloradans from climate change?
I appreciate this question so much. I'll say, with everything else going on in our world, with everything else happening in our democracy, with everything else happening in our economy, we cannot lose track for a second of the existential threat of climate change that is around us all the time. And I'll say, I think there's a lot of political opportunities here. All around the state, people are terrified about the ways that the major corporations, big tech companies are building out data centers that are polluting our environment, and we're not doing enough to hold any of them accountable. Suncor just reported $2 billion in profits in the first quarter. They're fined $2 million by the Pulse administration for polluting our air and water for years and years and years, for making hundreds and hundreds of kids sick. I create an environmental justice and protection unit because right now the AG's office's work in environmental protection happens in representation of the state's agencies. But the AG has the authority right now to hold corporate polluters accountable no matter what the governor wants to do, no matter what CDPHE wants to do, no matter how many fracking permits ECMC wants to provide, right? We can do that right now with the authority of the office. We can use the law boldly and courageously to do it.
We are at a crisis in this country. And here in Colorado, the Attorney General has to step up and do even more, and I promise you I will, when it comes to protecting our water and our environment. And I'm passionate about it. Our public lands, I refuse to let the federal government sell them off for a profit. And I will take them to court and I will win those fights as I have throughout my entire career. Our water is a critical issue for us right now. It's the lifeblood of Colorado. And the Colorado River Compact ends this year. And if negotiations continue to break down, the Trump administration is going to be able to assert their own solution. And we have a president who's determined to retaliate against Colorado at any given opportunity. And if any state tries to take Colorado's water, like Nebraska is now claiming they can come in and take our water, it sounds a lot like an invasion to me when they say that. I'm going to take them to court and stop them from doing that. It's about holding up innovative projects and championing them. It's about holding corporate polluters responsible, and having led the environmental crimes unit in the AG's office, I know what that work requires. And I'm passionate about it as a father, an ultra runner, and a Colorado. Thank you.
We have one more question, and then we'll do closing statements. So, Mike, this one goes to you. And 2 minutes on this one. Public safety challenges vary widely across Colorado's urban, suburban, and rural communities. How would you work with local law enforcement, community organizations, and state agencies to ensure a coordinated and effective statewide approach to public safety?
Public safety will be a priority for me. And I was coming down I-70 a couple weekends ago on the campaign trail. We stopped at a gas station and I went in and I was paying for the gas and there's two burly guys behind the counter. And I tried for the first time ever. I said, I'm running for Attorney General. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm just wondering, what's the greatest concern you have for Colorado? And they just stared at me. And I thought, I will never try this again. And then the first guy says, crime. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I don't take my kids to Denver. I won't take them to a Rockies game anymore. Because I hear that the city's out of control and there's all this gun violence and people are getting killed all the time. But then he said something really interesting, and I'll talk about it in my closing as well. He said, but I don't know who to trust when I watch the news. I don't know if that's actually true. And we had a long conversation. At the end of it, he said, you're the person I'm going to vote for because you're just telling it to me straight. And I know you're going to fight for community safety. And he's right, and that's the work I've been doing my entire career. It starts by addressing mental health issues and substance abuse issues. We let those basically go unchecked in Colorado. We're in the bottom 10. Mental health treatment being available in the community and substance abuse treatment being available in the community. I have a track record of instituting programs in Boulder County that have been incredibly successful. I also look at the work we've done on gun violence, where I have vigorously prosecuted gun cases, shooting cases in New York City all the way through to Boulder, including the mass murder at King Soopers, which I had the honor of fighting for justice for those victims, taking that case to court, trying the case myself, and having the defendant held fully accountable. It's also about teaming up with Ann McGeehan in the back and getting legislative reforms passed in Colorado. But here's the thing I'll emphasize when it comes to public safety. It's about building a better future for Colorado. So in Boulder County, I launched a project where we partner with nonprofits. We buy gun safes. We give them out for free to gun owners in Boulder County to reduce how many guns are being stolen and used in shootings. That's what it means to put public safety first. I have always and will always do that. Thank you.
And David Sullivan, 2 minutes.
First, I want to say that every time my friend Michael Gordy describes his ultra running, I always say, tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and I'm going to go for a run. And it hasn't happened yet, but after every one of these forums, I'm committed to doing it. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. The most important function of government, is keeping us safe, right? Now, the Attorney General's office, he is not principally involved in the prosecution of street crime, the way we think about it. But it is absolutely, fundamentally at the core of the project of how we're going to fight for the safety of our communities. I also think, though, that we need to have a broader understanding of what safety actually means. Right? So a client of mine, for example, several months ago told me a story. She lives in a corporate landlord-owned building here in East Denver, not far from here. And she said that her corporate landlord had refused to fix the exterior door locks on the building. A company making billions and billions a year. She refused to fix the exterior door locks. And people were coming into the building. There was someone who died of an overdose in the hallway. And she kept calling the city. She kept calling the police. She kept saying, somebody come help me. Force the corporate landlord to fix the exterior door locks as state law demands. And you know what they told her? They said, we can send somebody over and arrest somebody who comes into your building. But there's nothing we can do right now to force the corporate landlord to fix the exterior door locks. The law needs to show up for people with urgency in those kinds of circumstances to make sure that we protect them. When I'm the Attorney General, I'll have a strike force dealing with unsafe and unhealthy living conditions to make sure that those corporate landlords hear from us immediately. Within 24 hours, they fix those conditions immediately. We're going to go after corporations like Uber and Lyft, right, that knowingly are creating the circumstances that are leading to a sexual assault every 8 minutes on their watch. We're going to go after the corporate polluters that are making my kids unsafe, your kids unsafe, and the big tech companies reaching their tentacles into my kids' brains. The point here is there's so much safety zones can do on public safety, and we just got to use the law boldly and courageously to do it.
We're going to do closing statements in the opposite direction from what started. So David, you'll do first, and then Michael. And then after that, stick around. We're going to do videos from one or two of the ones who didn't come tonight, briefly. So, David Sullivan, you've got 2 minutes for a closing statement.
I want to start by sharing a story about a case that we litigated against the Polis administration and recently won. Who here remembers Amendment A, a constitutional provision that you may have voted on a few years ago that prohibited slavery and involuntary servitude for everyone, even those convicted of a crime? You voted on 66% of the vote in 2018. And you know what happened? Nothing happened. Nothing changed, right? We brought a lawsuit, the first in the nation lawsuit, to hold the Polis administration accountable, to hold the Department of Corrections accountable, and we recently won at trial, no longer in the state of Colorado, where the Department of Corrections forced people to work under the threat of solitary confinement. The point of that story is to share that so often the laws and the books that are there to protect the powerless and hold the powerful accountable are just words on a page, unless we can enforce them with courage and with boldness and with vision. The affordability crisis in this state is fundamentally an accountability crisis. Those with wealth and power, the same folks who are, dismantling our country for their own profit, they are ripping us off, right? They are discriminating against us, they are spying on us, and we have the tools at our fingertips to hold them accountable. The laws that ended Jim Crow and the Great Depression, the laws of the Great Society and the Civil Rights Movement, we just need to enforce those laws boldly and courageously and in ways that no one has ever tried before. That's the work that I've been doing my entire career. This office is where we take on the most important fights, not just to hold Donald Trump accountable, not just to hold accountable the corruption and cruelty that surrounds him, but to fight for a future where everyone can breathe clean air, drink clean water, get an abortion, put a roof over their heads, go to see the doctor, and still have a little left over to take their kids on vacation afterwards. I am so proud of the campaign that we're building across the state. We've got hundreds of volunteers endorsed by progressive leaders like Meg Froelich and Emily Sirota in these districts. And we came within 1 point of Secretary of State Jennifer Griswold at Assembly. I would love your support. We're going to fight for a better future here in Colorado and use this office. Thank you.
Mike Majority, 2 minutes.
When I was going to community college, and I was putting myself through school by loading trucks at UPS at night as a member of the Teamsters, if you came into my truck that night and said, someday you're going to be elected district attorney for Boulder County, and you're going to be running for attorney general, because the people need you, I'm not sure how I would have reacted. But I can tell you right now, as I stand here, I am honored. And I'd be honored to have your support, because the fight is on. Each one of us should be doing everything we can. And if a video came on right now and someone said, I'm never going to back down, I'll fight like hell against Donald Trump, I'm going to ask you to ask that video, then why aren't you here tonight? Because the fight is on. And it's not a time for video. It's a time for people who are going to step in the ring and answer tough questions and give honest answers and lead Colorado through a crisis. That's the kind of work I've been doing my entire career. And I want to talk about doing it with integrity. Here's the role of the Attorney General when it comes to public safety. The AG's office is actually in charge of law enforcement training for the entire state and has the authority to bring multi-jurisdictional actions against environmental polluters, crime rings, consumer protection violators, and the list goes on. When I was the head of the criminal section for the AG's office, we had a team that traveled the state and helped smaller jurisdictions with cases that they could not handle alone. That team was disbanded years ago before Phil Weiser. I'm going to bring it back on day one. As the Boulder County District Attorney, and I'm really proud of my office for this, we have handled 5 major high-profile cases for small jurisdictions around Colorado just in the last 3 years. Myself and members of our team. So I was down in the San Luis Valley 2 weekends ago, because it's about showing up. And I was down in the San Luis Valley, and we're at some event in a pizza place, and there's 35 people there, I think mostly Democrats, and in walks the Republican sheriff. Grizzled, he's been in office forever. The image you have in mind is the right one, by the way. He walks in, and as I'm talking, he's a staunch Republican his whole life. He says, can I say something? I said, yeah. He goes, this is the guy we call when we're in trouble down in the valley. We're in trouble right now, and I'm ready to answer the call. Thank you.
We greatly appreciate both of you taking the trouble to come out tonight. So let's give them both a round. some tough choices this year. It's nice to have so many candidates interested in running for these offices. So
we really appreciate you organizing it, and the timekeepers have the toughest job in the whole place. So thank you all.
And actually, before we run the video, this is the most well-organized campaign debate event I've ever been to. So let's give the organizing. So here's quick videos.
When did I decide to this much credit, but his presidency started an incredible attack in democracy. In a working class family in rural Colorado, promise of America. And that nothing but
Yes, jump.
I'm gonna try again.
when did I decide to run for office? I hate giving him this much credit, but his presidency started an incredible attack on our elections and democracy. Growing up in a working class family in rural Colorado, I believed in the promise of America, and that nothing makes sure that every voice is heard, like our constitutional right to vote. I beat an incumbent Republican to become Colorado's 39th Secretary of State and immediately got to work.
Secretary of State General Griswold signs a new state election security act,
along with implementing automatic voter registration and providing voters with tools to track their ballot from mailing to counting. That's why I led the largest democracy reform in the nation in 2019, increased drop boxes by 65%. We have a democracy in crisis, in a large part because Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. It's my job to protect our democracy and right to vote. But deciding to run for Attorney General, that happened right here. Because nothing renewed my energy to fight and protect our freedoms like becoming a mom. Colorado needs a fighter, and I'll stand up to anyone to protect the Colorado way of life. That means protecting civil rights and abortion rights, taking on the billionaires and big corporations who have made our housing, healthcare, and cost of living unaffordable. That means fighting climate change and taking on corporate polluters, standing up to the gun lobby to ban assault weapons. And yes, that means taking on you-know-who. Donald Trump acts like a mob boss. I have beat him over and over and over as he has attempted in 2020 to roll back mail ballots. We need to fight back. I will do everything in my power to stop them. I'm staying in this fight. That's why I'm running for Attorney General in Colorado to protect our fundamental freedoms and democracy. Our children and grandchildren are depending on us to keep Colorado the best place to live, work, and raise a family. And that's what I'll do as Attorney General.
and now videos from television.
Hi, Dr. Downs. I'm Shelly. I'm disappointed to not be with you in person tonight, but I'm actually on the road traveling for a 20-year law school degree and taking the opportunities and so while I can't be with you in person, I'd love to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a former federal prosecutor and a proud daughter of two immigrants. When my parents came to America, just like other immigrants, they were just chasing the American dream. They believed in a place where hard work meant that you could get ahead no matter what your starting line was. And so my beliefs about working families come from the inside, from my own lived experience. That I stand before you tonight, one generation removed from my dad arriving in America, is proof of the American dream work. But right now, we know that dream is under deliberate attack by Trump and his cronies, lawless ICE agents in our streets, fighting common sense gun safety reform, our right to vote, reproductive rights, the environment, the cost of housing, healthcare, and food are just a few of the issues we face right now. We are less than 18 months into 4 years of this administration, and that's why this race matters so much. The job of our next Attorney General is to stand between these kinds of attacks and the people of Colorado. And that's why this is a moment for on-the-job learning. The most important fights in the next 4 years will be waged in the courtroom, and And that's why we need an Attorney General who has actually stood in court arguing for the public. I would be honored to be that leader. I'm the only candidate in this race who has been a lawyer for the federal government. That matters because if you're challenging the federal government's abuse of power in court, having a decade of experience about the limits of that power puts Colorado in a position to win on day one. I'm also the only candidate in this field that has deep expertise in both criminal and civil law. That matters because the AG's office does both. The stakes in this moment are higher than ever, and the consequences of losing these battles are catastrophic. And so prosecuting ICE agents just shouldn't be your first criminal prosecution ever. Similarly, if you're talking about holding giant corporations and their executives accountable, experience and track record matter. I'm the only candidate in this race that has recovered billions of dollars when corporations broke the law. And I'm also the only candidate to have successfully blocked huge murders. I put cheating corporate executives and corrupt public officials in jail, and I've led teams of more than 800 lawyers and staff at the Department of Justice. I'm the lawyer that sued Google and Apple for crushing innovation in small businesses. I'm the lawyer that took on Ticketmaster and corporate landlords at Jack. And look, I share this with you not because it's a talking point, but because it's a track record that serves Coloradans in this moment. I think the best part of these forums is answering real questions about strips, and I'm really disappointed not to be doing that every night. But I hope you'll look at prior recorded forums and reach out directly with King with any questions. The job of the Attorney General is more important than ever, and no candidate is entitled to that job. But you as the public are entitled to know how any one of us would be the complexity of this moment. Our futures, our safety, and our ability to achieve the American dream depend on it. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk to you tonight. I'm honored to earn your support and make history as fairness will be.
Isn't it great to be part of a party that has so many good candidates? Have you seen what the other party is offering for a governor's race? I mean, it's like a lineup from a Mel Brooks movie or something. Yeah, these guys, if any of them get nominated, one of them will, I guess. It's going to be a disaster for them. I was at a forum last night in Colorado Springs where I was talking to this woman who had immigrated from Germany 10 years ago, and she was so distraught, so depressed about the state of our country. I know that many of you are too. And I said to her, you've got to work through your anger by working on the street, by helping candidates, by helping to make a change. Work out your anxiety about climate change, about immigration, all the things that this president is doing. Sending postcards, knocking on doors, whatever you can, giving donations to make a difference. I know that people here have been doing that for so many decades, so thank you for all your work, and I know we're going to have a good year this November.
I'd like to thank all the candidates for showing up, especially our moderator, Doug Linkart, for moderating the event. We have some volunteers who will stay around, but if you are physically able, this side of the room, we need to turn the chairs, and Pat Kowalski, could you help supervise the layout? You've got the layout down. This side, we don't need to turn any chairs. And we do have a little bit of time to visit with candidates before we have to clear the church. So feel free to get up and ask questions, and thank you so much for coming tonight.
Nice meeting you. I know, I appreciate you so much. This is so wonderful.